Your brain is pathologically terrified of the truth. Every single day, it actively feeds you tons of sophisticated lies, doing anything to protect your fragile ego from the brutal reality. You think you are in control, but you are trapped in a loop. Look at your choices. For years, you choose the exact same destructive type of partners. You buy useless junk at sales, aggressively convincing yourself that it is saving money. You stay at a hated job, hiding behind the weak excuse that the market is just bad right now. You truly believe these are your conscious decisions. But the reality is much darker. Your entire behavior is strictly dictated by hidden psychological patterns. Today, we dissect the 15 critical laws of the human psyche that shatter your life in real time. Prepare to watch your illusion of control burn to ashes. You constantly fall in love with the exact same type of person over and over again. A new face, a different name, but the energy remains exactly the same. It is the specific, toxic energy that is guaranteed to destroy your sleep. You desperately convince yourself that this is just a coincidence, but that is a highly convenient lie. Decades ago, John Bowlby exposed this precise psychological trap, defining it under attachment theory. Your brain constructed this rigid behavioral template when you were still lying in diapers. And it has been running it on pure autopilot ever since. Think about it. A helpless infant cries when terrified. If a caregiver responded consistently, the infant's brain registered total safety. It learned a fundamental lesson. The world can be trusted. This builds a secure attachment style. These individuals grow up psychologically stable in love, completely immune to eternal relationship dramas. But if the care you received was unstable, your developing brain adapted brutally. It hardwired an anxious attachment style. This is the exact person who panics if a text message is left unanswered for a single hour. Their mind instantly constructs and lives out an entire agonizing scenario of abandonment. They are in a perpetual, desperate hunt for validation, constantly begging for proof of love. And through this suffocating clinginess, they actively push people away, transforming their deepest fear into a self-fulfilling nightmare.
There is another path, the avoidant attachment style. The closer someone tries to get to this individual, the stronger their primitive urge to vanish. They retreat into the shadows, loudly declaring their sacred love for freedom. But look closer. This is not true independence. This is a cold, ancient childhood armor. The most devastating union in human psychology occurs when an anxious type locks eyes with an avoidant type. One is perpetually chasing. The other is frantically running. Neither ever leaves, yet both are completely drained. They are fatally addicted to the most destructive cycle human relationships can offer. Finally, there is the disorganized attachment style, absolute cognitive chaos. It forms when the caregiver represents both a safe harbor and a direct, terrifying threat. In adult life, this manifests as a relationship fueled by pure volatility. One moment, they are boiling with passion. The next, they freeze you out with zero explanation. These deep-seated patterns can be consciously rewired, but you can never fix what you are pathologically terrified to look at. And this exact emotional blindness silently forces you straight into the next cognitive trap. For 3 agonizing years, you endured a relationship filled with massive red flags, flags the size of a highway billboard. Everyone around you was screaming at you to run. You saw it perfectly clear yourself. Yet every single time,
You engineered a convenient excuse. You told yourself he was just going through a rough patch. You whispered that nobody is perfect. Your brain possesses the frightening ability to lie to its master with absolute, unwavering conviction. Decades ago, Leon Festinger exposed this mental self-sabotage, calling it cognitive dissonance. When your physical actions brutally contradict your deeply held internal beliefs, a violent psychological discomfort triggers inside your skull. Your brain absolutely hates this state of tension. It instantly shifts into survival mode. But instead of forcing you to change your foolish behavior, it takes the path of least resistance. It simply rewrites your core belief. The machinery of self-deception completes its work in real time, and you blindly accept the lie. You witness this psychological tragedy every single day. Look at that overpriced jacket from a luxury boutique. It actually looks terrible on you, but you loudly praise its style simply because you paid way too much money for it. Look at those 4 years spent in a suffocating classroom, grinding through a degree you despise. You hate the profession, yet you construct an incredibly sophisticated argument to prove this market is full of potential. Your brain is aggressively guarding your identity. To admit a mistake means admitting that the past version of you was utterly foolish. That realization is a lethal injection for your ego. Your brain will never voluntarily allow you to swallow that bitter pill. You will defend your illusions down to your last cent.
You were scrolling through an online store and see a jacket listed at full price. You pass right by it. A day later, the exact same item catches your eye again. But this time, the old price is crossed out. A new discounted price glows right next to it, highlighted in an aggressive, urgent red. Your pulse instantly quickens. A feverish sensation awakens inside you, a phantom panic that you are literally losing money if you walk away. You were not even looking for a jacket, but your hand is already typing credit card details into the payment form. Welcome straight into the devastating trap of prospect theory. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky mathematically proved that the human being is fundamentally not a rational creature. We make decisions entirely on emotion and only occasionally drag in logic to justify them. The core conclusion of their research is brutally simple. The psychological pain of losing something wounds us approximately 2 times deeper than the joy of gaining the exact same reward. Finding $100 in a Starbucks parking lot versus losing $100 from your pocket are mathematically identical events. But emotionally, they are completely incomparable. Loss strikes a brutal, lasting blow straight to your psyche. Corporate marketers converted this specific psychological fear into a high-precision weapon a long time ago. That crossed-out price tag on a website or app is not a gesture of care for your wallet. It is the calculated creation of a phantom loss. Your brain is forced to look at a manufactured reward that it is actively missing out on right now. Because of this cognitive illusion, the wasteful purchase suddenly begins to feel like a massive victory. You honestly believe you are winning when you are simply draining your hard-earned cash. This exact same cognitive mechanism traps people for years in dead-end, completely burned-out relationships. You have been miserable for a very long time. Yet the mere thought of losing shared memories, familiar routines, and invested years inflicts unbearable agony. Your brain is pathologically terrified to officially cut its losses. It forcefully commands you to remain in the decaying ruins of a broken life, simply because it refuses to accept the high price of the exit ticket.
You voluntarily choose to slowly burn to ashes in a comfortable void, while your subconscious obediently copies the self-destructive templates of others. Nobody ever sat you down to explain why certain smartphone brands are considered the ultimate symbol of success. Nobody explicitly taught you how to dress just to appear like someone with a flawless life. Yet, you know it perfectly. Your brain simply observed the people around you, quietly registered every tiny detail, and silently initiated the copying of someone else's desires. Decades ago, Albert Bandura exposed this universal human copy machine, naming it social learning theory. A massive portion of our daily behavior is never shaped by personal experience. We absorb it through pure, mindless observation. If you see an individual projecting absolute confidence and possessing something you subconsciously crave, your brain instantly activates imitation mode. The entire multi-billion-dollar influencer economy is engineered directly on this primitive instinct. The person on your screen simply broadcasts their aesthetic life, and millions of people feverishly buy up the advertised junk. No logical arguments are needed. Just a mindless, automatic desire to copy. You truly believe you are shaping your own tastes independently. The brutal reality is that you are merely a product of the content you consume every single morning in traffic. Your brain feeds on someone else's templates every single day. It violently constructs your entire identity from random, curated images, transforming you into a helpless hostage of engineered desires. You go out on a date to the cinema to watch the most terrifying horror movie available. Or perhaps you choose a rooftop bar on top of a skyscraper where the sheer height makes your toes curl. In the middle of this adrenaline-fueled chaos, you look at your partner and realize you are insanely in love. Your heart is pounding violently and your breath catches in your throat. You are completely convinced that this is a magical spark of attraction. Decades ago, Stanley Schachter exposed this cognitive illusion, defining it as the two-factor theory of emotion. Your brain is fundamentally incapable of instantly identifying the true nature of your feelings. An emotion is always constructed from physical shock combined with an external interpretation. First, the body delivers a raw physiological reaction, a racing pulse and sweaty palms. Then, the brain frantically looks around the environment to invent a logical reason. In a famous experiment, scientists injected subjects with adrenaline, and the participants instantly absorbed the exact emotions of the person sitting next to them. If that person was angry, the subjects flew into a rage. If that person laughed, they felt absolute euphoria. The internal chemistry is identical, but the mental conclusions are completely different. This is the classic misattribution of arousal. Imagine standing on an unstable suspension bridge over a massive abyss. A stranger approaches you, and you instantly fall in love. But you do not love her. Your brain simply confused the lingering, primitive terror of heights with raw sexual attraction. Choosing a horror movie for a first date is a highly calculated, pure manipulation of your consciousness. The physical shock always strikes first, and the lying narrative follows right after. Imagine launching a brand new project only to suffer a crushing failure. You try again. Another disaster. You completely pivot your approach, pushing yourself to the absolute maximum, but the result remains stubbornly at zero. After a brutal series of these attempts, something inside your mind snaps. You entirely stop taking action, not because the opportunity has vanished, but because your brain has memorized a ruthless lesson. Your personal efforts have zero impact on reality. Martin Seligman exposed this psychological prison, calling it the learned helplessness syndrome.
During a series of brutal experiments in the 1960s, scientists subjected dogs to electric shocks in a chamber where escape was mathematically impossible. Later, they moved the animals to an enclosure where escaping required a single, simple step over a low barrier. But the animals did not even attempt to run. They simply collapsed onto the floor and whined in agony. The exit was glowing right in front of their eyes, but they had completely unlearned how to see it.
This exact behavioral template ruthlessly governs the lives of millions of people. If you grew up in a chaotic environment where your hard work bore no fruit and the rules of the game constantly changed, you become a mental hostage. The heavy doors are wide open. Yet you choose to remain sitting inside your cage, genuinely confusing your learned helplessness with a sober, realistic outlook on life. Henry Toshville survived the horrors of the Second World War and dedicated his entire life to answering a single chilling question. How little does it take for human beings to become enemies? The answer is terrifying. Through his research, he established social identity theory. In clinical experiments, completely anonymous students were divided into two groups based on an utterly ridiculous criterion. For instance, the flip of a coin. Then, they were asked to distribute points among the participants. They always aggressively favored their own group. Not only that, they consciously sacrificed their own points just to ensure their rivals received even less. The single dominant goal was to crush the outsiders at any cost.
The human creature does not require a real physical conflict to feel hatred. Your brain needs nothing more than a superficial label of us versus them to instantly activate its primitive discrimination mode. This dark mechanism runs flawlessly everywhere. Look at the comments sections where iPhone users wage digital wars against Android owners. Look at the affluent suburbs where residents quietly despise the neighboring district. Your brain confidently assures you that your bias is just an objective opinion, but it is nothing more than primal tribalism, cleverly repackaged into a modern aesthetic wrapping.
Two separate groups of people are solving complex puzzles. The first group works completely for free, driven by pure curiosity. The second group receives exactly $1 for every correct answer. Then, a break is announced. The participants are left entirely to themselves. The individuals from the first group enthusiastically continue to crack the problems. They are having genuine fun. But the second group instantly slams their notebook shut and stops completely. The external monetary reward did not boost their motivation. It systematically destroyed it. The brain quietly flipped an internal switch. This is just a transaction now. I will not lift a single finger for free. Edward Dacey and Richard Ryan exposed this exact paradox within self-determination theory. The human psyche possesses a vital, desperate need for autonomy. It demands the profound feeling that you are doing something by your own free will, not for a corporate bonus and not out of fear of getting fired. The moment dirty money interferes with a beloved hobby, pure passion instantly burns out. Forcing a creative project into a source of monetization is the single fastest way to completely hate your craft. And right here, a critical moment arrives. Force yourself to face a ruthless question. Review every single one of your current life goals. How many of them did you actually choose yourself, simply because it brings you genuine joy? And how many of those targets were forcefully imposed on you by the system, dangling a corporate promotion or a superficial status symbol in front of your face? If you are grinding solely for that paycheck at the end of the month, you have already lost. You have voluntarily rented out your sacred independence to a master. And the most terrifying reality is that this endless race for someone else's rewards is just a desperate attempt to drown out your deep existential dread.
Man is the only animal on the planet that fully realizes that one day it will die. All other creatures live in the moment, reacting to immediate threats. We, however, spend decades knowing the finale, without having any idea of the date. To keep you from going mad from this existential horror, the brain has built a powerful defense. Jeff Greenberg called this terror management theory. We create complex systems of meaning, culture, religion, ideology, and status, just to become part of something eternal. If a brand or a legacy outlives me, it means I have partially defeated death.
The research is frightening. When people are subtly reminded of mortality, they begin to feverishly buy up luxury goods. This is exactly what happened in America after the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Sales of expensive cars and electronics sharply soared. This is not an economic boom. It is a panic-driven attempt by the brain to cling to symbols of solidity. The phrase, "you only live once," was created by marketers to direct your hidden horror of existence straight to the store's cash register.
When something truly terrible happens to a person, the story can take two separate paths. The first is a prolonged trauma that breaks fragile internal supports and leaves deep scars for a lifetime. But there is also a second path, about which academic science remained silent for a long time. Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun named it the phenomenon of post-traumatic growth. Some people emerge from the heaviest life catastrophes not just healed, but qualitatively different. The collision with harsh reality smashes their old illusions into pieces, forcing them to build a new personality from scratch. And this new foundation turns out to be many times stronger, more honest, and cleaner than the previous one. A person develops a sharper taste for a simple life. Falseness in communication disappears, and minor daily problems no longer cause panic. However, here it is important to do away with the cheap optimism from social networks. Suffering by itself is not a useful personal growth training. Trauma is always pain and destruction, and by no means does every piece of carbon under wild pressure turn into a diamond. Some things simply break irreversibly. This growth does not happen automatically. It requires a painful rethinking of what happened, and the full integration of this bitter experience into a new structure of one's I. This is the heaviest mental work, the goal of which is to force the brain to focus on creation, not on passive contemplation. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his entire life searching for the answer to a simple question: when are people truly happy? He distributed pagers to the experiment participants, which beeped randomly throughout the day. At that exact moment, the person had to write down what they were doing and what they were feeling. The result shocked the researchers. People recorded the highest level of satisfaction not during rest or a lazy vacation. They felt maximally alive in the process of hard work that demanded ultimate concentration. The author called this the state of flow. To enter flow, the task must balance on the absolute edge of your capabilities. A task that is too easy causes boredom and irritation in the brain. An excessively difficult one drives it into a stupor and panic. But when the difficulty perfectly matches your peak skill, the inner critic goes silent. The sense of time becomes completely distorted. Hours fly by like minutes. The paradox is that modern society desperately optimizes life for the sake of comfort and easy dopamine. But the brain is wired differently. It does not light up from passive idleness. It comes alive
only in the process of a meaningful, hard struggle. John Watson, the founder of behaviorism, argued that psychology should study only visible actions, not hidden thoughts. He claimed that from any healthy infant, he could raise absolutely anyone, from a lawyer to a thief, using nothing but the right external stimuli and rigid training.
To prove this, Watson conducted a wild experiment on a 9-month-old infant named Albert. He would show the child a white rat, and at that exact moment, strike a steel rail with an iron hammer. After some time, the boy began to scream in panic at the mere sight of the fluffy animal. Worse still, the fear transferred to all white objects, from a rabbit to a Santa Claus mask. To prove this, Watson conducted a wild experiment on a 9-month-old infant named Albert. He would show the child a white rat, and at that exact moment, strike a steel rail with an iron hammer. After some time, the boy began to scream in panic at the mere sight of the fluffy animal. Worse still, the fear transferred to all white objects, from a rabbit to a Santa Claus mask.
You have been sitting in an expensive restaurant for 30 minutes, forcing yourself to choke down a disgusting, oversalted soup. You are not hungry, and it does not taste good. Yet, you continue to shove spoon after spoon into your mouth solely because the dish has already been paid for. Familiar? In cognitive psychology, this everyday absurdity is called the sunk cost fallacy. Your brain is pathologically terrified of acknowledging losses. For the subconscious mind, locking in a loss feels like a mental death. Therefore, an irrational logic kicks in. You must continue to suffer just to justify the resources already invested. The most massive personal catastrophes are built directly on this cognitive error. This exact behavioral template forces people to hold on to crashing stocks for years, desperately hoping for a miracle. This is precisely what forces individuals to stay in a toxic, burned-out marriage where nothing remains but mutual reproach instead of love. You are miserable, but you continue to flush the remnants of your youth down a hollow black hole. The brain whispers, "But you've already been together for 10 years. You can't just walk away." And so you stay. You endure discomfort, waste your nerves, and systematically destroy your own future. You are paying a double price for a mistake you made in the past instead of simply standing up and walking out of the suffocating room. You spill coffee on your shirt in a crowded co-working space and instantly burn with shame. It feels as though absolutely everyone around you is staring at this stain, judging your clumsiness and whispering behind your back. But the truth is, the vast majority of people do not care about you at all. Thomas Gilovich named this psychological phenomenon the illusion of transparency. We tend to heavily overestimate how noticeable our internal emotions and physical flaws are to those around us. A human being lives at the very center of their own universe. Because of this, it constantly feels as though your personality is under the permanent crosshairs of everyone else's eyes. During a series of experiments, students were asked to wear t-shirts featuring embarrassing, foolish drawings. The subjects were completely certain that every second person in the room noticed their humiliation. In reality, less than 20% of those present paid any attention to them at all. The people around you are far too busy masking their own blunders to waste time analyzing yours. You turn on the evening news, and there they are. Stories about plane crashes, assaults in residential neighborhoods, and rare, deadly viruses. The imagery is so vivid and frightening that a sticky fear instantly wakes up inside you. The next day, you cancel your flight and decide to go by car, genuinely believing you are saving your own life. But the statistics are relentless. The chance of dying in a car crash is hundreds of times higher than in a plane. Your brain made a gross mathematical error. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman called this the availability heuristic.
Our subconscious mind evaluates the probability of a threat not by dry numbers, but by how easily and vividly an example flashes into memory. The media knows this weak spot perfectly well. They bombard you with shock content every single day, creating a flawless illusion of total chaos.
As a result, you are in a state of panic over rare, highly publicized threats, but you completely ignore the real dangers: poor sleep, fast food, lack of physical activity, and mental burnout in a suffocating office. You build your entire life relying on a distorted image from a screen. And while you obediently waste your nerves on phantom fears, your real life quietly slips through your fingers, leaving you one-on-one with the final credits. Now you see the entire picture as a whole. Your life is not a random collection of events, but the direct result of rigid psychological programs running in the background. Your brain will defend its illusions until the absolute bitter end, feeding you convenient lies and forcing you to copy someone else's desires just to maintain a false sense of comfort. But now, you possess the ultimate weapon, an understanding of these exact mechanisms. You can no longer justify your blunders with foolish forgetfulness or random coincidence. The illusion of control is completely destroyed, and it depends entirely on you, whether you will continue to be an obedient biorobot in this system or finally begin to write your own script. If this breakdown forced your brain to activate its critical thinking, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments which of the 15 laws of the psyche you have noticed in yourself most often. Be honest. It will not kill your ego, but it will definitely expand your consciousness. Links to the books and research, as always, are waiting for you in the description below the video. Turn on your awareness. See you soon.